Well, good evening and welcome to the regular City Council meeting of the Federal Way City Council for October 17th, 2017. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and let's have Boy Scout Troop number 307 please come over here to our right, your left, and we'll begin when you're ready. Proceed.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's always great to have the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts come, and really appreciate you doing that. Good way to start the evening, and I'd also like to thank the parents and the dedication and you know, it's a commitment by the whole family to be involved in the Scouts. It's a great organization, so thank you. Okay, first we've got presentations, USA Special Olympics Games 2018 presentation by President and CEO Beth Knox. We've also got Tim Johnson, our Economic Development Director, nearby as well. Ms. Knox?
Good evening, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and Council members. It's truly an honor to be here tonight. I know that you share our excitement for the upcoming Special Olympics USA Games that are coming to the Puget Sound region next summer. It has been about 2.5 years or better in the planning, and we are coming down the pike now with about 8 months left to go. So we're very excited. Wanted just to give you a high-level overview of what is in store for next summer. So just walking you through by the numbers quickly, dates are July 1 through 6 of next summer. It will also coincide with the 50th anniversary of Special Olympics. The first World Games for Special Olympics was in Soldier Field in Chicago in 1968. So we have the privilege of being able to celebrate that anniversary next summer. We'll have 3,000 athletes coming from every state in the country, and they'll be bringing with them 1,000 coaches. The USA Games is responsible 100% for those 4,000 individuals once they land in Seattle and until they leave. So we'll cover all of their expenses from housing, transportation, food, entertainment, etc. We'll have 10,000 volunteers. This is the number that is required to produce the games and ensure that they are successful. And it's also a great way to connect individuals with the athletes and the Special Olympics movement. We're having another 10,000 friends and family members who will come from across the country here to cheer on their athletes, and they will be staying in the region. Unlike the athletes, they will be staying in area hotels, so we expect that to have a great impact on our region. All told, between the individuals that will be attending opening ceremony on the first of the week, through all of the competitions, all of the different activities, we're expecting over 70,000 fans that will be supporting Special Olympics. 14 sport competitions, and then a total economic impact of over $76 million. We have done an economic impact projection, and then we will do a follow-up following the games to confirm those numbers, and we'll be happy to share those with you. ESPN will be broadcasting the opening ceremony live, so that'll be another 500,000 viewers for opening ceremony. ESPN has made a commitment to covering all 14 of those sports throughout the week. And really, a big number here is the thousands of lives transformed. And I don't make that statement lightly. Of course, this is very meaningful for the athletes who have succeeded at the highest level to come and compete here. But the volunteers, the sponsors, the partners, those are the ones who really benefit from this opportunity to connect with the athletes and be part of this movement. So moving along quickly, some of the legacy that we hope to leave behind after the games is certainly that economic impact to the region. Of course, this region is also known for its technology, so we want to utilize technology to enhance the games experience through systems or data collection, programs, whatever will make their experience that much better while they are here, whether it's athletes or the families and friends. We have a full integrated sustainability plan that will be implemented at all of our event sites. We are really committed to having a neutral carbon footprint and mitigating our impact here. Something that's really important to us is that we are setting a new benchmark of excellence for the USA Games. We are, because this is the 50th anniversary as well, we are really being looked at to set that bar even higher. And that's an exciting challenge for us, and I know that we can achieve that. Special Olympics Washington is the organization that is the year-round organization that does the care and nurturing of the athletes here in our state. There are 17,000 athletes currently part of Special Olympics Washington. But an interesting fact is that there are actually 180,000 eligible individuals for Special Olympics in our state. So one of the things that we hope to achieve by the time the games are done is that we have brought new awareness, visibility, more volunteers, more sponsors, and more athletes to the program so that we can grow that impact here. And then the message of inclusion is something we are very passionate about. When we announced the games in May of 2016, our honorary board chair, president of Microsoft, Brad Smith, made the statement that his goal was that by the time the games were completed, that this region would serve as a model for inclusive cities. And that's something that resonated so strongly with all of our partners and supporters. So we are weaving that message of inclusion throughout all of the things that we do, and not only wanting to make the athletes feel very welcome and included here, but really shift the culture so that our communities feel it as strongly. So these are all the venues that we'll be using. University of Washington will host the athletes and coaches. That's where they will be housed in the dorms there. We have half of our sports will be in University of Washington venues, but we will also be using Angle Lake for stand-up paddleboarding, Celebration Park, of course, here for our softball, and the King County Aquatic Center for swimming. We'll have Kenmore Lanes for bowling. Redmond will host the Willows Run Golf tournament. And then Seattle U and SPU will also have some of the venues. Lastly, Lake Union Park will be the site of our closing ceremony. So in addition to the 14 competitions, there are a number of elements that will make up the USA Games. And I mentioned the City of Inclusion, and that's something that we really want to tell those stories. We want to hear what stories of inclusion that individuals or businesses are demonstrating in this region. So we have launched an I'm a Game Changer campaign that will help to tell those stories and bring light to people who are doing extraordinary things or even simple things that are still changing the game in the area of inclusion. The Law Enforcement Torch Run is an international movement that supports Special Olympics, and the final leg for the USA Games will be made up of one representative from every state, law enforcement from every state. So we'll have 52 officers coming from all over the country. Another 6 Special Olympics athletes will be nominated and selected to participate in this torch run. What they'll be doing is carrying the torch with the flame of hope for the USA Games through 30 different stops throughout the state of Washington. And the goal is to really increase the excitement and enthusiasm throughout the state and build that anticipation up to opening ceremony. Ultimately, that torch will be carried into Husky Stadium to light the cauldron to launch the games on July 1st. So as I mentioned, opening ceremony will be in Husky Stadium. This will be a significant production, broadcast live, as I mentioned, and we want everyone to be there. We want to fill that stadium. This is an opportunity to really witness the joy and incredible accomplishment of these athletes and to celebrate with them. Our fan zone will be an interactive engagement area outside of the stadium. Special Olympics Town is for athletes only. Fan zone is for athletes and spectators. The Olympics Town is just the athletes. It's a place for them to relax, blow off steam in between the competitions. Healthy athlete screenings is a really critical component of Special Olympics. This is where we have screenings for 7 different disciplines, including hearing, vision, dental, even fitting shoes on their feet. And we will have a train the trainers moment with all of our medical volunteers to make sure that these individuals know how to screen individuals with intellectual disabilities. So it's a great opportunity for these athletes to discover whether they need new glasses, whether they need glasses, period. And many of them will receive their glasses on site at the USA Games. And for those individuals, oftentimes they're seeing the finish line for the first time because they have glasses. Others will receive a hearing aid on site, and now they can hear their coach tell them what they need to hear. So it's really a powerful opportunity to improve the health as well as train medical professionals here. Our youth leadership experience, these are individuals, high school students with an intellectual disability and one without, so there will be 2 from every state coming to be volunteers and then take that back to their home state, their experience, so they can, again, be part of the future of inclusion. Young Athletes Festival will be at Seattle Center and down here in Federal Way. This is for ages 2 to 7. You have to be 8 years or older to compete in Special Olympics. And the Young Athletes Festival really focuses on bringing the joy of sport to the youngest athletes. Fans in the Stands is for our volunteers to cheer on the athletes. Our goal is to have minimum 4 fans for every athlete that's competing. So regardless of what state you're coming from, you will have someone here cheering you on. So it's a great opportunity for our corporate partners, our city partners, et cetera, to bring volunteers and be part of the games in a meaningful way. We'll have unified sports experiences that will have members from the general public as well as celebrities, where they will be playing on the fields in a fun pickup match with our athletes, again, to break down those barriers. And then I mentioned closing ceremony, which will really help to celebrate the athletes and all of their accomplishments that they've made. So I just wanted to share our corporate partners as well as our public-private partners, and we are so proud that there's been so many organizations that have stepped up to support our $16 million budget that it takes to produce the games. And all of these partners have really extended their commitment to bringing their employees as volunteers and being very actively engaged. And I want to mention that all of our professional sports teams have also stepped up to support the games, and many of them have their athletes, their players who are involved as ambassadors for Special Olympics. So the Federal Way Partnership, just to highlight a few of these, of course, at the King County Aquatic Center, we'll have competitions the entire week that they are here. And at the Performing Arts Center, we're looking to have volunteer training and orientation there. One of the exciting opportunities at opening ceremony is that we will have a 2018 member choir that will serve as our living backdrop to the stage. And we'll bring them down here to Federal Way to the Performing Arts Center for some of our choir practices. We might do staff meetings, et cetera, but we look to use that beautiful venue that you have. In Celebration Park, our softball competition will take place 4 of the days during the week. And then our Young Athletes Festival, as I mentioned, will be part of your Red, White, and Blue Festival. And lastly, we look to use your Town Square Park for award ceremonies, where we'll present the awards and get people like yourself involved with presenting those medals. And something that I know is near and dear to your hearts is what's the impact in Federal Way specifically? Well, to date, we've had 263 room nights booked in Federal Way at a rate of $42,000. That will be, we fully expect that to increase pretty significantly, but that's what we have booked to date. We want to highlight family attractions that are here in Federal Way and tell our families about them. And then the Welcome Inclusion Initiative is a partner of ours that we are helping to showcase as part of our City of Inclusion initiative as well, and they do training and certification of businesses who want to be trained in how to be welcoming and inclusive in their places of business. So we look to bring that down to Federal Way as well. And then we'll have a shuttle service that will travel between our venues, certainly down to Federal Way, to make sure that fans and family members can come see their athletes and enjoy the competitions. So we will have a full schedule, of course. They will load in on the 27th through the 30th. The athletes arrive on the 29th and 30th. Competition all week, and then we'll be loading out on the 6th through the 8th. So it's a busy week with a lot of activities, but exciting all the same. So how can you get involved? Certainly volunteer, and we hope that many Federal Way residents will do that. Attending the opening ceremony, of course. Attend the competitions, be a fan in the stands. Donate to support the USA Games, or nominate a game changer business or individual, and really become part of this City of Inclusion. So lastly, just our hashtags and social media opportunities, and this is a way for us to communicate about the games. So our taglines are Rise With Us and I'm a Game Changer, so we hope that you will be part of that. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any this time.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for choosing Federal Way. We're really excited about this, and we're really excited about all the work that's been done, and this is going to be a really great event for this community and the region, so great work.
Great, thank you.
Council, any
Yeah,
other?
Jim.
Oh, Councilmember Selson.
Yes.
And Councilmember Cephedosa.
Thank you, Beth, for your passionate presentation and what you went through this evening. First of all, I'm really happy to know that Federal Way is going to be involved with venues and other opportunity here to showcase our great city. I actually first heard about the Special Olympics competition next year from a friend of mine who's involved in the Special Olympics in Southern California, and her grandson actually, through a meet, won a spot to come and be involved in the track and field competition next summer.
Oh,
so,
fantastic.
and yeah, and they're just very excited, and I'm excited they're going to come up and be able to visit our great part of the country. But they are going to bring about 8 or 9 people themselves, and so they need places to stay, and you went through that. So
Right.
I just thought I'd mention a personal side of this thing. I'm really looking forward to Brett coming up here, competing, and just being involved in this. So thank you very much.
I appreciate hearing that. You know, that I hear that type of statement so frequently. People are coming with multiple friends and family members to the games. They're planning on that already, so that's very exciting.
Okay, Councilmember Cephedosa.
Yeah, I too wanted to say thank you. I personally, being a person with a disability, coming from a third world country where there's no such a thing, it's really exciting and uplifting to see that this country is very open to inclusion and making sure that nobody gets left behind when it comes to athleticism and stuff. So I just want to say thank you for your effort, and
Welcome.
I look forward to our involvement here in Federal Way, through volunteerism or whatever. So
Excellent,
you.
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Lydia. Councilmember Moore.
Thank
And
you so
Deputy
much, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. Beth, it's good to see you here in the great city of Federal Way. I'm glad you presented, and I'm extremely pleased for the involvement with the city of Federal Way and the partnership we're creating with you. And I'm scanning the audience to see if I see Tim Johnson.
Right behind her, yes.
Yeah.
He's been behind this for a couple of years now.
Yes, he
There
has.
you go.
It's been great to work with.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what I was going to say, Mr. Mayor. He's briefed us in our FEDRAC meeting, our Finance, Economic Development, Regional Affairs Committee, as Deanie is the chair of that committee. So I appreciated all the briefings, the updates, and I know how hard he's worked on this. And as a person who works at the ARC of King County, and I know that we are involved with WIN.
Right.
I believe we're housing them.
Yes, that's correct.
We're hosting them, rather. So I'm extremely passionate about this topic, and there's a lot more that I can do to learn. But I'm just really appreciative of what the city is doing and creating the partnership, and really what you do every single day. Thank you.
Outstanding, thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Burbridge.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Beth, for coming this evening and sharing with us and getting us, the whole community, excited about this event. I'm personally am looking forward to it very much. And I know last week our Lodging Tax Advisory Committee met with some folks from the Special Olympics program and over at the Performing Arts and Events Center, and they were able to have a bit of a tour. So I hope you're able to take that in at some point soon.
I'm looking forward
as
to
well. I certainly am looking forward to the whole process, and a note of thanks from me to Tim Johnson too for all the preparation work that he's been doing in working with you and with others and putting the program together. And on a personal note, I also serve as guardian for a few folks with disabilities, and in past years, a couple of folks have been able to participate in the Special Olympics
excellent.
held in this region, and I've seen firsthand how much it has meant to them to have this very challenging but very friendly event that they can be a true participant in.
Right.
So thank you very much for your
You're very
work.
All right. Councilmember Honda, and then back to Councilmember Moore.
Thank you. We have several service organizations in Federal Way, the Kiwanis, Rotary, that kind of. Would you have openings for volunteers from those organizations?
No question. And we are actually working with organizations right now. Between now and the end of the year, it's our focus on actual companies and organizations to fill the volunteer slots when they can bring, say, a group of people. Many of those organizations want to use this as a team building opportunity, or they just want to volunteer as a group. So this is the time to reach out to our office, and they can contact us through the website at SpecialOlympicsUSAGames.org. In January, we'll open it up to individuals to fill the remaining slots. So this is a perfect time to bring in service organizations.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, back to Councilmember Moore.
Actually, I was going to ask that similar question. I know that we have Boy Scouts in the audience, and we always encourage our Boy Scout members and Girl Scouts, but right now we have Boy Scouts in the audience.
Yes.
To be actively engaged and help. I imagine you'll accept any sort of Girl Scout, Boy Scout, Cub Scouts.
Absolutely, and of course there are some volunteer positions where there is an age requirement, but there are many positions for families, for Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. In some cases, will of course require chaperones, but there's many opportunities to accommodate volunteers of all ages, all abilities, and interests.
You know, it is really interesting. I remember when we first sat down and started talking about this, I think it was in 2015, a couple of years ago now, almost 2.5 years ago now. 2018 seemed like a long ways away. Now it's right around the corner. And so thank you for all this work. It's really coming together. And once again, I want to thank Tim Johnson for all of his work.
Excellent.
All right. Any other questions for Ms. Knox? Beth, thank you very much. Great job.
Thank you.
Okay, now moving on. You know, I've got some stuff, some items that I've attended, but we talked about the Kilworth, the Camp Kilworth property, and we said that there was an action item we were going to do. I did want to follow up with our community development director, as Brian Davis, our community development director, did follow up with the Scouts, did follow up. I wanted Brian to be able to, just from where you're at right now, Brian, with the microphone, can you tell us a little bit about what you did in follow-up to the representations we made at the last council meeting regarding Camp Kilworth, its conditions, and moving forward?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. About a week and a half ago, I contacted the Pacific Harbors Council Executive, Ralph Volker, to visit the property. We went onto the property. There's a gate, so there's no vehicular access without access to the front gate. The first area is the caretaker's residence, which I observed to be secure. The power was off, but he indicated that it could be turned on if needed. But it was secure. In fact, he was going through his keys trying to find which one opened it, and eventually did. And so the house was secure. It's not, it's not clean or anything like that, but it certainly is secure and poses no, at least on my observation, no risks to vandalism at that time. We then proceeded further down on the property. There was another vehicular gate that had to be opened to go down further to the amphitheater and the lodge, and the lodge was also secure. It was locked, and so we were able to inspect that building as well, and I found it to be secure. There were other buildings on the property. There's some storage sheds, a couple other buildings that had some things as far as scout props and equipment in there that were open, but generally I found the property to be secure, and again, the power was off at the lodge, but he indicated that it could be turned on if needed. He also talked about the current negotiations that they were dealing with the Kilworth Trust on having the property revert back to the trust, and that he mentioned that those negotiations were ongoing.
So the roof is secure and there's not leaking coming into the structure?
I didn't observe leaking into either structure based on what I saw.
And power, it can be turned on?
Could be
to
turned
heat it?
on if needed.
Okay. And is that something that, what has been the normal course for them in regard to how they keep that property?
I'm unfamiliar with the normal course of what they do, but just based on my observation with annual maintenance, I mean, if it stayed in the scouts' possession for years and they didn't, they just did an annual cleanup, that would be satisfactory. It would be sad that there wouldn't be a use on the property, but just in terms of keeping the structures up, the maintenance upkeep, with an annual cleanup and check-in, it should be sufficient.
Okay. Did it appear to you that there was any danger in the short term of deterioration of the lodge?
No, of the lodge, no, and neither the caretaker's residence. Again, there were a couple of sheds that didn't have locks on them, but the contents inside were not of any significant value.
Now, that as the police department has reported to us, and we're all aware, there had been vandalism that had to do with wiring. Did that relate to the heating, or what was that related to?
Yeah, I understand there were beginning attempts to maybe strip some of the copper, but again, he indicated we inspected it generally, and he indicated that they turned the power off, and again, if needed, they could turn it on again with some, talking to the power company and getting whatever they needed in place to do that.
Okay. Well, we may follow up if we get more
Yeah.
comments later on this evening about
Sure.
any further detail. Thank you very much for doing that. All right, now moving on to my report. Community events I've attended. We had the annual Kiwanis Oktoberfest for inclusion on October 6th. That was put on, obviously, by Kiwanis, as it says. It was an absolute fantastic event. It was great to see everybody there. Great job. And Kevin Hutchinson and all the volunteers, and it was held at the community center, and it was a great community event. We had the very next night, we had the Advancing Leadership Evening with the Stars. That was on Saturday, October 7th, another great event for the community, and saw a lot of individuals. And it's so interesting to see. Advancing Leadership as a group is a very, very successful organization in the community, in which it literally trains our future leaders. In fact, many people in this room have attended those multi-week trainings, and they have graduating classes, and they all claim to be the best class. So it's sort of interesting, a great competition. But it was great to see that, and it's under great leadership by Lawrence Garrett, and it was fun to be a part of that. And several of my colleagues up here were there as well. I attended the FWAPA, the Federal Way Public Academy. It was a 9th grade visit on October 6th. They had a lot of great questions, and it's always fun. That's probably the best part about this job, is getting out to the schools and getting out and really talking to some very intelligent and very inquisitive high school students, or near to be high school students at the Federal Way Public Academy. I went to the SHAG Community Meet the Mayor event on October 11th, and that was a great event. And again, it was great to get out there and talk with members of the community. Okay, that's my report. There are a lot of things going on in the community, but the most important thing is to hear from the people who attend our meetings and hear from the community. So everybody knows the rules. I'll go ahead and call a couple names up, and then I've actually got a yellow public hearing for the public comment sheet for the public hearing later, and that's Jeff and Nursey Carpenter. So I'll call them when we get to the public hearing. So in order of appearance, Peter Zimmerman, Mary Ellis, and Lori Seacrest. Those are the first three up. Yeah, please.
Good evening, everybody, citizens and leaders. I appreciate you having us here to speak, Mayor and everybody else. My name is Peter Zimmerman. I'm a Rotarian with Federal Way. I'm a new one, but I like it. They seek the truth, and that's a really good thing. I'm also the Boy Scout volunteer for Dash Point Troop 398, the Eagle Advisor. And tonight I want to shout out David Long. Congratulations on your star. He got it. I wasn't there at the meeting. He's getting it right now, so he's going to see the video. But I want to say thanks for the Cub Scouts coming out here. St. Luke's, right? Yeah, roger that. Great opportunities with the Scouts, and they're doing their job to study citizenship in the community. And speaking of that, I was the caretaker for Camp Kilworth for the last 3 years. So today I was having coffee with my neighbor who lives at the entrance of Camp Kilworth. 4 vehicles from Puget Sound Energy show up, and they want to turn the power off to the camp. Apparently the vandalism that happened made it dangerous, and they needed to shut the power off. And they were willing to cut the locks because the Boy Scouts weren't going to be there in time. And I said, well, wait a minute. I was the caretaker. I could probably open that lock for you because it's combination. So we did that. I didn't go in with them, but we saw they went down and worked down there for a while. They said they had to turn it off the power to both the caretaker facility and the lodge because of vandalism, and the meters were stolen. And also, I want to let you know that about a week ago, I got texted from my neighbors who live there. They went on the property and found the vandalism had happened, and they texted me pictures of it. And I asked them, please call 911. So they called 911, and I followed up with a call to 911. And 911 said, what's the case number? I said, you don't have a case number. Well, we don't know if there is one or not. That's another question. But the fact that the riding lawnmower that was there was seen a couple days later with the neighbor in his trailer, and they saw it in the neighborhood. And they took pictures, but nobody put it together, and they asked me, is this the mower that's missing? Was never reported stolen. So it's questioned me, why wouldn't they have a case number for all this vandalism and stolen property? Sorry, I'm about 30 seconds from being done here. So on the good note, I spoke with the heir, who seems to be a really nice person, Gretchen Paletta. She is a court reporter out of Newcastle. And she's in touch with the Kilworth Foundation people, Union Bank, I believe. And there must be some, there'll be some more communication they'll let us know. Well, I'm done. I just wanted to let you know that we care, and we're still trying to help the camp go on for another 83 years.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks.
And Peter, we care too, and I'm going to ask our deputy chief in the back of the room, Kyle Sumter, to get back to you regarding the incident number, not a case number, but the police incident number,
Sure.
And to talk about this lawnmower issue. We'll get that. I'll have Deputy Chief Sumter.
We matched it up. I got photos from 2 different places.
Very good. That's what we're here for. Thank you, Peter. All right, now Mary Ellis, and then after that, Lori Sechrist, and then I'll call it then. Evening, Mary.
Evening. Well, there won't be any turning the power back on at the lodge because PSE was there today. So we are still very concerned about what's happening down there. And we did get an answer from Ralph Volker, and I'm sure they shared that letter with you, that basically BSA carries insurance, but when we asked if they were going to do something and turn it into insurance to repair the damages, we were told that they would take it under advisement. Don't ask me what that means. I also sent a letter to you, and I'm sure you get so much trying to read it all before a meeting, and I only got it off this morning. But I did go through the 2013 Parks and Rec report. I didn't ask any questions last time because I appreciated Brian's presentation, but I really didn't know enough about it to ask. My main question is that it truly is a piece of open space. And was the criteria used for the park open space? Because we definitely don't fit community park. And from what I'm reading, and I could very well be wrong on it, but what I'm reading is that there is need for trails and open space. And it is there. And we can see educational uses, environmental uses, all sorts of opportunities there, and as well as it's a historic site. So we're still plugging along, and we know it's difficult for you guys when you can't get answers, we can't get answers, and it's just, we want everybody to be ready should the foundation then decide to open it up for public use in some manner or form, whether selling it or what. So we're still very, very concerned. I hope you had a chance to look at what I presented. If it wasn't considered under open space, please do that. You know, right now there's no access to the beach, but there used to be. And the trails do not connect, but we used to walk down the beach and go to Dumas Bay and Dash Point State Park. So there are opportunities there to include the public. We never envisioned that it would be, well, we have a neighborhood park. We never envisioned it was going to be a community park, but we always envisioned that it would be preserved as the second growth forest it is. So, and as I stated, there are a group of us more than willing to help in any way, shape, or form. So please keep us informed. Like I said, I appreciate the presentation, but I did leave a little bit questioning as to what the criteria was that was used. So,
Thank you, Mary. And just to give you a quick answer right now, we all got the letter that you sent, your email and your attached letter, and we'll make sure that Brian Davis responds to that letter to make sure that we're all talking about this, we're on the same sheet of music. We'll get an answer to you, and at the next meeting, we'll make sure that anybody who's watching this right now gets that same answer.
Okay.
So this is going to be a standing item on my report for the foreseeable future.
and I didn't get the opportunity to ask you, Brian, any questions, but I just put it in a written format, so.
Very good. We'll get that to you, and we'll get it to everybody.
All right, thank you
Mary.
very much.
All right, thank you. Lori Sechrist.
Thank you. Okay, so good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, City Council staff, and community, neighbors and friends. So tonight I'd like to revisit the 1994 Concomitant Agreement, specifically Section 2 titled Conclusions from the Ordinance, which states, the unusual environmental features of the site will be preserved, maintained, and incorporated into the design to benefit the development in the community because the subject property has widely recognized natural features ranging from North Lake and Lake Clenari to the Weyerhaeuser Bonsai Collection and the Rhododendron Garden, which attracts visitors on an international scale. The concomitant agreements will provide property owners the means to preserve and protect these natural features, as well as providing the city with the ability to ensure that all natural features are adequately protected. Because of this agreement, the city must ensure that any development not only fits within the zoning, but also must comply with the intent of the agreement, has a beneficial effect upon the community, complies with the environmental and development regulations, and is in accord with the city's comprehensive plan. So I bring this topic up again tonight because we all know that the city now has the second application for the property titled the Warehouse B. So this new application poses the same concerns to the neighboring communities in terms of the traffic impact, the wetland, and habitat displacements as the first Warehouse A had. So everyone agrees that large-scale warehouses do not belong in the city of Federal Way, nor do they provide any benefit to the community, and they certainly would not preserve and protect the natural features of the property. So in order for the city of Federal Way to maintain a healthy, habitable, and sustainable living community, it must be free of any industrial, large-scale warehousing and distribution development that would bring thousands of trucks daily to our already clogged surface streets and freeways. Development that would destroy hundreds of acres of trees that are vital to our watershed and displace numerous species of birds and other habitat. The time is now for the City of Federal Way to be proactive. Do not allow one warehouse application to be approved without a comprehensive plan of the entire 400 acres. I'll remind you these three areas, the Warehouse A and B and the Green Line Business Park, will represent 1,510,000 square feet of warehouses and over 1,200 semi-trucks per day in a city that states that they do not want large-scale warehouses. The city must ensure that IRG develops the former Weyerhaeuser campus in a manner that protects the unique natural features of the property, preserves the open spaces, and maintains the character of the campus. We must find a more suitable use for the property, and the time is now, before these applications are permitted, before it is too late. The legacy of this property is in your hands. So I know you have all heard the George Weyerhaeuser's quote from the 1969 Sports Illustrated interview before, but it is worth repeating. So when the change is for all time and involves a unique physical asset, I think we have to weigh it very, very carefully to see what price we are going to have to pay for economic progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, I waited on this because I didn't want to chop it up. Is it Frank Farico or Ficcio? Fields. All right. Frank Fields. Sorry about that, buddy. And then Tim Burns after that.
All right. Okay, well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and the council members and the community. I'm a SHAG driver for the Celebration Park, and been out in Federal Way for about 83 years. I'm a retired correction officer, and my name is Frank Fields, F-I-E-L-D-S. Okay. Okay. When you came to our,
I need better glasses.
huh?
I need better glasses.
No, me too. Me too.
Can we start his 3 minutes over, please? Go ahead.
Okay, so when you came and talked to us the other day, I was really interested in being a voice for our senior community. So the type of what did you say, the Senior Citizens Commission?
Yes.
I would like to try to get on that, or you can direct me how to do that when that time comes, because I'm hearing that you don't have that all the way set up yet, right? Okay. And then the other thing I had to ask, all the counties from the north end, like I said before, and Auburn, they're getting hit with these monstrous light bills. Are we going to have the same problem here, or what's going to happen with us here for the seniors that can't afford 3 or 4 times their monthly bills? So.
As soon as you're done, I'll talk.
You talk to me about that? Okay.
Yeah, go
And
ahead.
then one more little quick thing I've been wanting to know for years. What's going to happen with the Albertsons down there on Twin Lakes?
Good
It's
question.
been there forever. Okay? All right. So that's all I have to, say.
Well, thank you, Frank, or should I say Mr. Fields. Thank you very much.
All right.
So the, hold on, while you're here, let's get an answer. Brian, one of the proposed locations for the Albertsons on 21st was for storage. Did that application get vested, or was it pre-application?
I believe that one's vested. I
That
think
one's
there's
vested.
two in the vicinity, and one of them's vested.
Okay, do you recall the name of the company?
I don't.
So,
We're gonna have a presentation later tonight on it.
that's right. So, Mr. Fields,
So somebody-
what we are going to do is, that was one of the locations where a self-storage application was made, and that application came in before a moratorium came in, so it's vested, which means they can move forward with that prior. So that location there's an application in it right now for a storage location, or a business. Then you asked about the senior commission, that's in
Right.
the works. That's something I've been talking to several people here. That'll be a project for after November.
To look forward to.
And then electric bills. One of the things is, I do think that I do want to say a shout out to the Multi-Service Center for their LIHEAP program that has been one of the mainstays of this community for the needy. It's been great. Councilmember Duclos was the executive director of that organization for years. I actually spoke about the fact that our senior rebate program, in my opinion, is fairly anemic, and we need to take a look at that to make sure it's much more substantive. That's something we're going to be taking a look at, because we only do that reimbursement at the end of the year after people have had to outlay that, and it is actually pretty small. So that's something we're going to be evaluating.
Okay.
All right.
That sounds good.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming.
All right.
Appreciate it. Tim Burns. And that's the last pink sheet I have. Mr. Burns?
Oh, wow. Mr. Mayor, Madam Deputy Mayor, and City Council, and audience. I just want to bring to your attention the fact that on Saturday, there is going to be a town hall, a legislative district town hall meeting with all 3 of our 30th District legislators, Senator Mark Milosha, Representative Mike Pelliciotti, and Representative Christine Reeves. It's going to be at 10 o'clock in the morning at Alpac Elementary School, which is located between Algona and Pacific, on Ellingson at Milwaukee. And everybody's encouraged to attend. It's an opportunity to see all three of our legislators and learn what has happened in the legislature and what they anticipate for the next session. So, thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. And it's great to see our two representatives and our senators all meeting at the same time. That's great for the community. So again, Alpac Elementary School this coming Saturday, 10 a.m. It'd be great to have everybody there, or many people there. Julie Cleary and then Lawson Bronson.
Sorry for the last minute. I had to chop up my speech a little bit. It was way too long. Okay. So I believe that the mayor has done nothing legally to fight what IRG is trying to get permitted, nor has he tried to open the agreement to have it be amended. It takes both parties to amend the agreement, and I don't see where the mayor's brought this forth to IRG. Has the mayor asked for a professional, impartial, experienced land use and contract attorney to look at the interpretation since 2016? I don't think so. In 2015, I have an email that was sent to Tim Johnson from R.J. Burton, Mr. Freezer, I'll call him. He's looking for a large piece of property to build his freezer, but Tim Johnson answers him back, Federal Way community is built out, and this is predominantly focused on information, communication, back office, medical, and professional services. Back up. The team of Farrell and Wilson rely on an alleged forged letter, which was written in the fall of 2015, 3 months before the purchase of the property by IRG in February of 2016. How did Mr. Freezer from the email and IRG get together and plan to build a freezer and a fish factory so fast? Another question unanswered. So why do I say alleged forged letter? Because the person who the city claims wrote it and signed it states that publicly he did not write it. We've all come before the council week after week over the years, writing letters and emails, asking over and over, how can distribution centers, logistical centers, massive warehouses, gigantic freezers, and a fish factory now be interpreted as okay to be permitted as projects on the majestic property? Brian Wilson continually tossed this alleged forged letter back at the council members as a reason to permit the building of the fish factory. Neither Wilson or Farrell asked for an interpretation from then-acting Scott Sproul, Community Development Director. Very curious, he was highly qualified per Mayor Farrell. No, they used the alleged forged document from the fired employee. So that's it, the only document the city could produce for me from records requests concerning an interpretation for the property agreement and the CP1 zone, the only place in the whole city zoned this way. On one day I came to meet Brian Davis in his office when he first started. He asked me, Julie, if you were queen for the day of Federal Way, what would you do? So I'm going to follow a Bob Woolley. I'm queen for only a few seconds. Mayor Farrell, City Council, Brian Davis, and you also, Ryan Call, I demand you open up this agreement, put a moratorium and hold on all projects on the campus until this agreement that was made with Weyerhaeuser is gone over to determine its correct and legal interpretation. It's not too late. Stop the injustice. Council, stand up to the mayor and demand action be taken. Answer our legal questions in the comments that we presented last August, the legal questions that have never been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Majesty. All right, Lawson Bronson.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Earlier today, I was down here, I noticed interest in Kilworth, and another subject is LNG. I've been a Boy Scout leader in this area for 35 plus years. I've spent many a cold night at Kilworth with Boy Scouts, and I would just encourage you to continue to work with the scouting community and with the Kilworth Foundation to see if there was any way we could acquire this and use it as a public park. Thank you for your efforts so far. Secondly, on the subject of LNG, I think this is something that which would be best left to the City of Tacoma and the Port of Tacoma to resolve the challenge of how we handle LNG. For those that don't know about it, both East and West Coast of the United States are, by an international treaty, required to go away from the fuels that we're using now and eventually fuel ships with LNG. We have two choices. We can either choose to put it on land, the facilities on land, and be able to regulate them and closely watch them, or it will be done by barge, and that's a lot riskier than doing it by land. I've handled everything as a ship's officer, from dirty socks to nuclear weapons. LNG is not terrible. It is tricky, but it's the best opportunity that we have for a clean fuel in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawson. Okay, that's the last pink sheet I have. Oh, Miss Vargo, yeah, come on, as the man says on TV, come on down. Oh, that's right, we're on TV here. Go ahead.
I don't really have a speech together. I would just like to say that, we've been here for over a year asking about our air, our traffic, our water, this Hylabos waterway, and nothing has been addressed. None of you have gone outside of yourselves and investigated, walk the property, talk to the people who know, go out and get environmentalists. Our Hylabos is a living entity, and we're willing just to pave it for cement? For people who don't even care. As Julie was talking, Mr. Mesmer, you never even looked up. You did not look up from your phone.
Ms. Vargo, please.
I just really have a hard time. I just wish we would look at this concomitant and realize it was drafted and it was agreed upon because it was important to save this property and to develop it in a way that works for all of us. That was the code of George Weyerhaeuser: business, wildlife, and people living together as one and making it work. Can we please do more than what has been done? We need an interpretation. We need our comprehensive plan to be legal and accurate. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Duclos.
I just want to say, I think you're wrong that in saying that none of us have done anything. I have been to the property. I have talked to people that have lived over there. I've talked about some actions that people out in Ocean Shores took in order to save a piece of property from being developed, and I've given names of attorneys to people. So I kind of resent the fact that you say we haven't done anything as individuals.
All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. Is there anybody else who has a pink sheet or would like to talk? Thank you very much. Again, I think this is the most important part of the meeting. All right. Now it's on to the consent agenda. These items have gone through council committee and can be passed all at once. After I read each one of the individual items, I'll ask whether a council member would ask for an item to be pulled for separate consideration. All right. Item 5A, minutes for the October 3rd, 2017 special and regular meeting. Item B, Parks and Recreation Program Guide. Item C, Target Corporation grant for the Federal Police Department's Crime Prevention Program. Item D, purchase a new radar speed trailer with traffic safety funds. Item E, South 352nd Street, Pacific Highway South to Enchanted Parkway Extension Project acceptance. Item F, South 320th Street at 20th Avenue South intersection improvement project acceptance. Item G, Sacagawea Middle School Safe Routes to School project acceptance. Item H, Lakota Park Stormwater Facility Repair Project 30% design status report. Council, is there an item that any of you would want to pull for separate consideration? All right, hearing none. Deputy Mayor Burbidge, do you have a motion?
I do, thank you. I move approval of items A through H on the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the matters passed unanimously. All right, we've got a public hearing now. I will now open the public hearing on the self-storage moratorium. First, we'll have a staff report from Doc Hanson, our planning manager. A citizen comment will follow for 3 minutes each. And right now, I've got one pink sheet. Not pink, this is yellow. Yellow sheet. And then we'll have council discussion and questions. Okay, so, Doc, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. I'll try to make this very short. These are slides that you saw on September 5th that instigated the moratorium. As you see on the slide, the trend lines were shown to show the proposed or the potential proposal for self-storage units that have occurred just within the last year. We'd asked the question why these things were happening, why these proposals were made. We compared them to household rate increases and also household fractions. We also wanted to, we also wanted to locate where the existing ones were, which are noted in blue, and where the potential self-storage units were planned or potentially could go based upon the information that we received. Those are noted in red. A couple of those red items, one down on 356th, as a question came before in terms of the Albertsons, that is vested. And what we have right now is a vesting of self-storage units, which is going to more than double what we have in existing self-storage units today. There's a few things that I wanted to do. I wanted to reemphasize why we were suggesting, or why the suggestion was made that we view these regulations. We wanted to see why this was happening. We wanted to review adjacent jurisdictions, regulations, to see what they were doing in terms of self-storage units. And we also wanted to look at various design criteria. I've learned a couple of things since the last discussion and the moratorium. I've been doing some research related to self-storage units. One of the questions that was asked last time by the council was in terms of vacancy rates. I went to the Marcus and Michael research and investment firm. They're a real estate agency which does deal with real estate agents in both nationally and regionally. Found that both nationally and regionally, the vacancy rate in new self-storage units and developments is quite low, approximately 10% throughout the nation. But also within this report, one of the things that I was able to determine, and a statement from them, is that there is a potential saturation of self-storage units within the near future, although they have not given any particular date. All that they did was report the existing vacancy rates. They did not report on the vacancy rates of existing units. They were looking at vacancy rates of new units. I also had an interview with a developer who completed a self-storage unit in the city of Federal Way. He gave me a number of interesting statistics and factors that are actually considered when somebody is thinking about doing a self-storage unit, such as they don't create a self-storage unit unless there is a demand within 3 miles. From my first statements on November 5th, this coincides with some of the things that I was witnessing when I was reviewing some of the proposals. That being that CTAC does not have any new self-storage units. They have self-storage facilities, but they have a lot of new beds in hotels. And that's tied to the potential new runway and the expansion of the airport facility. That's an investment that's occurred in SeaTac, and it fits within the 3-mile radius of what is being discussed in terms of potential proposals. Also, in the northeast area of Tacoma, it is highly populated with single-family units, and they are lacking self-storage units, and therefore the city of Federal Way down in the southern portion is market for these types of units. The last thing I found out from this individual was I'd indicated to him that we had accepted pre-applications and actual proposals for self-storage units in the amount of 11, and I was inquiring why that he thought that was occurring. His statement was that the city of Federal Way has the easiest criteria in terms of getting self-storage units, which turns back to the reason why we wanted to look, or why we were offering the suggestion to do some research, requesting the moratorium so that this could be analyzed and brought back to the council for discussion in terms of further research. I did receive an email today from one of the applicants, or Mr. Carpenter, who I believe is going to testify this evening, and did have the email that indicated that a number of these pre-applications have dropped. We have not confirmed that, but even given that, there is still a market out there for people who are interested in these properties, and there may be a consideration the council wishes to take in terms of considering what zones, what areas the city wishes to have these types of facilities develop it within. I will close that. I'll leave this map up there so anyone that wishes to testify can point to these particular points, and to answer any questions after the public hearing or right now.
Okay. Any questions so far, council, or should we just, why don't we hear? I think actually we've got questions and council discussion after that. Thank you, Doc. All right, so at this point, what we'll do is here I've got one yellow sheet from Jeff and Norsey Carpenter.
Hi, sorry, my handwriting's terrible. It's Jeff and Noonsey Carpenter.
Oh, hi.
Hi. So I've sent a few emails, some information to the Planning Commission, Council, and et cetera. A quick little bit about us. We're husband and wife. The company we have for self-storage is right now just the two of us. At some point, it'll be our children, if we can get it off the ground. We've got an approved SBA loan that we've put on hold because of the moratorium. We've got an active purchase and sale on property that we've deferred or extended, buying property actually from the county over on Military Road up in the north end in one of the red dots. For us, we've spent about $50,000 so far getting ready to submit an application. That's geotech studies, surveys, marketing study, environmental testing, lab testing, and so far everything looks really good from a market standpoint right up until the moratorium hit. Part of what makes us still feel why this is good, I'm glad you left that up there and you talked about the city of SeaTac. There's nothing existing in the north end of town. Our facility that we have proposed is within a mile there's no storage facilities, and within 2 miles there's 24,000 people. You get outside of that area, all the facilities, so I've checked the facilities two ways. I've driven them all myself, the existing facilities, they're all full. I've had the marketing team go out there, they're all 95 to 98% full. So you've got a undersupply situation, and there is more demand. Some other folks have noticed, and they've got proposals up there. I do know, through talking to two different architects, one I've sent you, another one I haven't, that several of those are already being pulled off the table not all of them. Some of them are in areas where there's wetlands, and I'm not sure they're going to get approved. Our site is not. Our site, we're trying to meet all of the requirements. And like Doc said, it's very localized. People don't go more than about 3 miles unless they have to get self-storage facilities. So you've got a large group on the south end. And I think, for me, the reason for the moratorium is that clumping in the south. The north has nothing right now. So we have 2 requests, really simple. Number one, to see if we could revise somehow the moratorium to just address the south end where there seems to be an overcrowding, and let some of the us in the north end continue with the projects. And if that's not possible, because I don't know how the rules work on ordinances, we're new to this, okay? And if you consider additional requirements, I'd ask that you be really sensitive to what those requirements are. I know that in the multifamily, you all looked at, or you have added a requirement, I believe, for retail out front. That could kill little storage facilities like ours. So what I would ask is, ours is under 100,000 feet. What I would say is if you put requirements in like this for things like retail, you do it on the larger facilities that can actually handle the economics of having to put in a retail out front, dedicated parking spaces, the roadway, driveway access necessary. So something larger than 100,000 square feet and larger than 3 acres. That's it.
Thank you both. Thank you. And Mr. and Mrs. Carpenter, can you hold on just for a second? Ryan, did you get both of those questions? Ryan, you got both of those? Is there when are we, no action is anticipated tonight?
That's correct. This is a public hearing to address the action that was taken at the previous
That's right.
meeting. So this is just to take in comment.
Okay, that's right. So what we're going to do is, what I'll ask you to do, and I think, I'm sure the opinion would be unanimous, is to, if we can, do you guys have legal counsel?
No.
You don't. So if you could draft a response to these 2 questions.
Sure.
These folks, that'd be great. And then let's share it. Let's have a, since this is a public hearing, let's share this at the next council meeting as well, and then include all the council in that letter.
Of course.
Okay, very much. Okay, thank you very much. Great job tonight, you guys. Thank you. All right, Julie Cleary.
I feel really bad for them, so I think you should have only do it for 6 months. But I think you should do a moratorium on warehouses also. And a previous council person had suggested a self-storage unit and warehouse moratorium. So I'd like to see a moratorium on warehouses because I think we have enough of those also. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. All right. Any other citizen comment? Any other citizen comment? Okay. All right, council discussion and questions. Council, any questions? I see 2 lights on. Councilmember Dawson, did you have one? Please.
Thank you.
And then we'll, go ahead, please.
Okay, it's a comment, actually. I use a public storage, and so the people who use it are people who don't have homes and garages and places to put their stuff. So usually it's people who reside in apartments or multifamily type of places. So I do sympathize just because I am a utilizer of public storage. And I know my rate has gone up since I started renting, which to me makes it seem like the vacancy rate is low. And so it's kind of, it goes along with what you said. But you talked about existing vacancy rate was not studied, is that what you were saying? Versus new, just for clarification?
What this study showed, and it was a national regional study, so I was looking at both of them, and what they were studying was newer storage facilities.
Okay. So,
and when I'm speaking of newer facilities, looking at the end of last century to today.
Thank you. So I would support the 6 month, but I also understand that staff has a lot of load and a lot of work, so I understand why we did the 12-month moratorium. So hopefully that could be with the workload, maybe it may not take as long as 12 months is what I'm hoping for, so.
We're hoping the same.
Okay, so that's my comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Duclos.
Well, I want to appreciate the people that came up and spoke about their storage units, and I don't want to hurt people that have already made an investment in something, and when I'm looking at the map, it doesn't look like there are many up in the particular area. So I might want to try to exempt something that's been applied for already from a moratorium, because I really, I don't see it up here. I see the blue ones are more in the center and down south, and maybe we want to protect those areas, but at least exempt somebody that's got something in right now.
Thank you, Councilmember. And then we'll have legal counsel analyze that and get an answer back, not only to them, but to the entire council. Councilmember Moore, did you have something? All right, Councilmember Honda.
Thank you very much. I would also like to see something in the north end, because there seems to be a need in the north end for this. But my other questions are, in 2016, Councilmember Maloney did ask about doing a moratorium on self-storage units and was told that it was illegal. So what has changed between 2016 and today? Why was it illegal at that point? Because she brought it up several times on LUTC, and she couldn't get anywhere with it. So has something changed to make it?
You'll have to forgive my ignorance since I've only been here for 6 months, but in terms of the study that you're talking about, could I have some more background? There's been, let me state this, and I stated it last time. The pre-applications that we received, all 11 of them, have happened within the last year. Exactly within the last year. The first ones we got were in October. I believe a lot of that, in looking at the research itself, is there has been a demand, an immediate demand for the self-storage units for what has been brought out in terms of the number of multiple family units that have been developed over the past several years. And as they become occupied, there are going to be demands on those. What we're finding and what we'd like to research in further is who is actually using these self-storage units. My anticipation is that there are a lot of people, such as myself and my age group, as the baby boomers, that are actually moving to these apartment units and these condominiums and downsizing considerably. But it's very difficult to get rid of a lot of things that they've lived with for 40, 50 years. So they find places to store them. That's one generation. Another generation is the millennial generation, who are not buying as much. They're buying what they need within the condominiums because they're starting to realize that that's the life they wish to live. And we're finding that, I've found that in private research. I'd like to look at this more regionally and what's happening right here. There's a lot of people that do live in multiple family housing units, have lived in multiple family units throughout their entire home life, and have purchased things and replaced them and put them in storage units. That's what I've been able to find in terms of why this has increased. There's people that are moving, there are more people that are moving into multiple family units. And as such, they're not really willing to get rid of a lot of the things that they have.
Well, Councilmember Maloney wasn't talking about a study. She was talking about that she had noticed that there was an interest in having self-storage units. And she was wondering why we couldn't have a moratorium on it, and was told that it was illegal. So that's what I'm trying to understand.
I couldn't address the legal aspect of it, yes.
Ryan?
So I'm not sure what the exact question was the council member Maloney asked. This is kind of a textbook use of a moratorium, this context. We have perceived change in how people are using a particular land use, and the planning department wants to take a pause and basically study the issue. This is what moratoriums are for. So this is a legal use of the moratorium authority. What we need to be concerned about is when they start to go on and on. It could be that she was looking at maybe banning self-storage entirely, which would be most likely illegal, or some other nuanced question, but what we're doing here is absolutely lawful and proper.
All right. That's all for now.
All right. Councilmember Selsky.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Farrell, and thanks, Doc, for the presentation. I just have a question about a couple of our zones. With regard to the city center core and frame, do you know offhand if we allow for these public storage units in those two zones? The reason I ask is because there's one very close to Celebration Park, just across the street. And I can't remember if that's the frame.
I believe that is a commercial business zone.
Yeah, don't mean to put you on the spot here,
Well,
but
I
yeah.
apologize for not knowing specifically where that is or whether that particular site is non-conforming or not.
Mr. Mayor, it is city center frame, and it predates the city center frame zone.
Okay, I would definitely like to make that a consideration about use of our, the land in the frame and in the core to exclude these if we can do that. And I don't know if that would be considered spot zoning or not. And the second question is, following up to what Mr. Carpenter said, and Councilmember Duclos, yeah, the observation is we just don't have a lot of this in the north area. And given the use of these and what people are looking for, again, would it be considered spot zoning if we were to allow this in some parts of the city and not in others, to be continued to be developed?
From my perspective, and I'm only speaking as a planner, I would not consider that spot zone. However, if I may, I'd like to comment on the first part of your question. I don't think that there's any question that there's a need at this particular time. I also don't think that there's much of a question that there is going to be a saturation in the market. I think that what the council is going to be faced with in the future, in the near future, when we bring these arguments before you and the data before you, is the question specifically, do you want the city of Federal Way to serve this need? That's the question that is going to have to be answered, and it can only be answered by you, the council, and the citizens of City of Federal Way. I won't offer a suggestion as to what you should do.
Mm-hmm.
It will be on the basis of what you want to do. Because there is no question that there's a need for self-storage units. The question comes back to, do you want City of Federal Way to provide that service?
Okay, and so another question I'm thinking more, just a consideration, is Mr. Carpenter said you bought this land from the county, or you actually bought and financed to buy this? Okay, but I mean, this is actually county property. And so the question is as a city, how do we want to use this property? If there's a vacant piece of property sitting out there that belongs to the county, it's not on our tax rolls, I wouldn't think. And so if we build, or if somebody builds something of this use, at least we're now going to derive some kind of revenue from it, from the property tax standpoint, including the improvement. So again, I'm not throwing out a question. I guess I'm just throwing out a comment of how we want to allow this property to be used for the benefit of our citizens, businesses, investors, and for the benefit of the city in terms of deriving sales or property taxes from. So anyway, just a consideration to think about. Thank you.
Okay, and all of these comments that you're getting now are going to be used during the course of the next 11 months now.
That's correct, Mr.
Okay. Councilmember Honda.
Thank you. I did go out and meet Mr. Carpenter at his property shortly after the moratorium was voted on. And the area that this property is in a very depressed part of town. And what he's proposing would make it look a lot nicer and serve the needs of the people there. So I would really like to see us study if we can continue to let his project go through, because there's a need in that area now. I would also like to encourage this moratorium to be 6 months and not a year. I think a year is a very long time, and a 6-month moratorium would suit those people who are trying to invest in the community better than 12 months. I know that the department is understaffed, and I know that this is a lot of work for you guys, but I would really encourage this to be a 6-month moratorium.
Ryan, legal counsel, could you explain to folks watching what happened when this moratorium was passed, what the duration is?
So at the last, I believe the last council meeting, was it the last council meeting?
No, it was September 5th.
September 5th.
A while ago.
Council took action to enact a 12-month moratorium. We've come back now for the public hearing, which is required by statute to happen after the fact, after that action is taken. So that's what tonight is for. In the next 12 months, I guess the next 11 months, we will work with staff and come back, I think through Planning Commission, to present proposals that will somehow regulate or meet council's desires on how we want to see self-storage evolve in Federal Way. So that was the process. It's already happened. We have already enacted a 12-month moratorium. Absent further action, that's what will stand. Nothing else needs to happen from council tonight for that process to continue. If council, I've heard several comments about shortening the moratorium. We really can't change the moratorium as it is. We'd have to basically rescind the moratorium and then do another one, which would take two actions of council. And I believe if you remember back to the last meeting where we discussed the moratorium, there were pretty strong staff concerns about the ability to come back in 6 months with a cogent and a good answer, because right now we barely understand the problem, or if there even is a problem. We've just noticed a huge spike that was alarming. And we talk a lot about best use of property here. We're talking about a pretty semi-permanent, a long-term use. Once someone builds one of these, that's what that piece of property is going to be for the foreseeable 10 or 20 years. So I think that through some cajoling from staff, I think council eventually agreed that 12 months was a better time period so that we could get a good answer back to you.
Okay. Councilmember Duclos and then Councilmember.
Well, I want to go back to this couple here. When we did this, we didn't know that somebody had already built something or had bought and invested money in it to do something like this, and it's way up north. I didn't have pictures like this too much to look at, and we didn't really know the whole thing. I don't want to hurt somebody that's made an investment somewhere that it's not in downtown, it's not even near our downtown, but it probably will be used by a lot of people. So I don't want to hurt those people. They're business people in my mind, and I want to do what I can to support them. So does what we did last time mean they can't do anything? I'm confused.
So there was no action plan for tonight. As to specifically allowing one project to proceed during a moratorium, that is not legally defensible. That's probably something that we cannot do. It's basically equal protection of the law. Everyone that's in a certain situation needs to be treated the same.
Yeah, I understand that, okay, but they didn't know what was going on when we did this the last time. Were you aware of this? So I don't know that we had the proper notice out to people.
Councilmember Copang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Doc, thank you for the presentation. I know you guys are working very hard, and I've had conversations with both you and Director Davis about the interest of moving this forward. And I think it's very clear or very important for the public to understand that we are not required to take 12 months to get through this moratorium, and that the staff is working diligently to shorten that time period as much as possible. So I think that was clear in my communication, or that was clear in your communication back to me, that was a priority. So you were not looking at taking an entire 12 months to do this, although you did have the authorization from the council to use that time if you needed it. But the intention was to do it as quickly as possible.
Correct. That's why we asked for the 12-month moratorium.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor Burbridge.
Thank you. I understand the concern of people who have an interest in developing a particular piece of property for a particular use. But the council also has an obligation to weigh the need for different kinds of development within the city. And certainly there's need for storage units. There are existing storage units, and some applications had been filed already. Some permits had been filed, and therefore those locations were vested at the time the moratorium began. And we've been told that we can't look at one individual application that was not filed before the moratorium differently from others that might have, where there could have been interest. So we need to accommodate that legal situation and allow the staff to do the work that's beginning to occur. And we will be informed as time goes on what their findings are, and we'll be able to come to a decision when we are ready to do so. So, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Honda.
On the map, could you please indicate which ones are already vested? We have the one on Campus Drive with the old Albertsons. Are there any other red dots that are vested?
Yes. Let me point out the ones that have been vested.
Thank you.
There's one at 296th and Pacific Highway that was just submitted, or had been submitted before the moratorium by a month. There is one that is vested because their land use application was, process 3 was approved, although they had not submitted a building permit.
And where's that?
I'm sorry, Hilltop Heated Storage, that's at 356th and 210th. So that is 21st. And 356th, which is down to the south. And another one that is at 336th and 21st, which is the Albertson site. And the Woodmont, which is north, which is vested. It's on 276th and Pacific Highway. We have approximately, in my estimation, making an assumption of about 100 square feet per storage unit. Some are going to be smaller, some are going to be bigger, of about 5,300 storage units that are vested at this point.
Okay. Council, any other questions? Councilmember Selsky, do you have a motion? Thank you, Doc.
Yes, I do. I move to close the public hearing on the moratorium on self-storage facilities.
Second.
Been a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now moving on, council business. Before we move on, Mr. and Mrs. Carpenter, thank you very much for coming. All of us are mindful of your huge investment. Thank you for making the investment and wanting to come to our city. We'll work through this. We're going to get you those questions. But everybody up here, without exception, is concerned, and we want to make sure we do right by you. Okay? Thank you for coming tonight. All right. All right. Council business. Item A, adjust the start time of November 7th, 2017, regular meeting to begin at 6 p.m. Deputy Mayor Burbidge.
I move to suspend Council Rule 2.1 and to begin the November 7th, 2017 regular City Council meeting at 6 p.m.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. All right, item B, Youth Commission appointment. Councilmember Kopang.
Mr. Mayor, I move to appoint Justin Filfred to fill a vacant voting position on the Youth Commission with a term expiring August 31st, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, congratulations. All right, Ethics Board appointment, Deputy Mayor Burbidge.
Thank you. I move to appoint Anthony Poliaco to fill the vacant voting position on the Ethics Board with a term expiring June 30th, 2020.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Anthony. All right, item D, Planning Commission appointment, Councilmember Selsky.
Yes, I move to appoint Lawson Bronson to fill the vacant voting position on the Planning Commission with a term expiring September 30th, 2021.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Lawson. Thank you very much for your service. Or we know him as Bud. Thank you, Bud. All right, ordinances, first reading. We have Council Bill 728, refinance of Target property. And first, we'll have a staff report from Ade Arewulo, our finance director. City clerk will read the, and then after that, we'll read the ordinance title, and then we'll move forward. All right, Ade.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. The presentation before you, just to, it is not, I think, pardon me, because of some of the response that I have made in the last few days, I just want to clarify, it is not about whether to buy the Target property. It's about the property that we have, that the bond is still on it, our best way to move forward. So the question of the land or whatever is not what I'm to address. You know, when we acquired the property, we bonded it for 3 years, and now that 3 years has expired. The purpose is to extend the time, to give us more time to be able to find the permanent solution for the land. And before I move forward, I would like to introduce our bond counsel from Foster Pepper, Ms. Nancy Neres is right over there, and she will be glad to answer any of the legal questions. Again, before I go further, they are also based on some of the things that I have read in the media. There's no penalty on the city on this particular bond. You know, I've read somewhere that the city is, because we didn't pay on time, so the city is paying huge penalty. No, there's no huge penalty anywhere. This is the book on the bond that was set up November 26, 2014. it is due 3 years after. So it is due November 26, 2017. This is October. So there's no penalty on this bond. And to state clearly, also after we sold a portion of it, we've redeemed more than 2,000 of our bond from the proceed from the sale of a portion of that land.
Do you mean 2 million?
Pardon me?
Do you mean 2 million, not 2,000?
Excuse me, 2 million. 2 million.
2,000 is good, but it's not great. All right, you mean 2 million?
Yes.
All right.
We've
This is
paid
our
off.
finance director, by the way.
So that is why we have 6 million left. Just to give you a little bit of background, the original bond was 8,209,960. It was November 26, 2014. So if you speed up, that puts us November 26, 2017. So we're still within the time frame of the bond. As of that time, the rate was 1.5%. And the LGIP, which is the state investment, was about 0.67, which as of today, the LGIP is 1.26. So if you kind of make a relationship between the LGIP, which is the local government investment pool that is run by the state treasurer's office, from what it was at that time and the 1.5% that we were paying at that time. The term is for 3 years, and as I said before, not 2,000, but 2,209,960 that we've paid off, leaving a balance of 6 million. It was interest only, 123,970 per year, and we sold the land that belongs as part of this property for 1,837,000. So what we are proposing before you is just the same. We're not increasing the debt of the city. It's the same debt that we have that we've actually reduced by 2 million. So talking about the debt capacity, this is within the debt capacity. And actually, we've lowered the amount that we are borrowing. It's for 5 years or less. We've locked the interest at 2.17 and expect to fund it by November 17, 2017, actually before it is due. We can do interest only for the first 2 years or pay interest and principal. In order for the investors to make sure that they have some degree of income, that is why they have this prepayment penalty. That is, if we were to borrow the money today, and in less than 12 months, we say, hold on, we want to pay back. Without selling the land, they want a penalty of 2%. Because it's a tax-exempt bond. If you sell the land for unrelated purpose, you must redeem. This penalty doesn't apply. If we were to sell the land tomorrow, this penalty of prepayment does not apply. Because in order to make sure the status of the bond remain tax exempt, if you sell that land for now or you use it for non-governmental, you must redeem the portion that you're selling for non-governmental. That is part of the reason why we just redeem more than $2 million after selling the land, a portion of the land for the hotel. So this penalty, they just want to make sure that we're not going to turn around and say, well, interfund loan or borrow money from someplace else and pay them back. That is the essence of this penalty. As I pointed out in there, no penalty with the land sale. Even though this doesn't really pertain to the discussion today, but because of some of the comments that I have, read or heard, I want to refresh your memory on some of this. When we acquired the land, it was $8,209,000, and the size of the land was 7.48 acres, which is equivalent of 325,828 square feet. So that boils down to about $25 per square foot. That is what we pay for it. When we sold a portion to the hotel, we sold it for $2.19 million for the size of 1.86 acres, approximately about 81,000 square feet. That brings to a unit cost or a unit price that we sold the same land for 27. We bought it at 25, we sold it at 27. That gives us pretty much about 8% return quickly. So, and now we have sold the portion that belongs to the target is 1.56 out of 1.86 that we sold. The portion that we sold for the hotel is a little bit from the Performing Arts Center land and a portion from the target property land. The portion that goes with this bond out of the 1.86 is 1.56 acres, which is equivalent of 68,000 square feet. And again, just to be, I've heard the question whether this is the right decision or not. I have, without putting any of my colleagues down, I have a copy of a bond that was sold October 5 right here. And they have a variable rate of 2.3. What variable rate does, which is adjustable quarterly. I hope I will never bring that to you. What variable rate does is, if things goes up, the rate goes up, regardless of your budget. What we have in here, 2.17, for budget purposes, you know what the cost is going to be. For somebody to do variable, again, without putting anybody down, that would be suicidal. Because if the economy picks up and the rate goes through the roof, where you don't have an opportunity to prepay, so for somebody paying variable rate, I'm paying more than we're paying today. what I have before you, 2.17, and like I said, this 2.3 was finished this just October 5th. So this is a good deal. I think it gives us the latitude, because what the city is looking for is time to deal with the property. It's time to be able to market the property. And that is what this is giving us. Giving us that a window of 5 years. Yes, there's a clause in there that after 5 years, if we want to roll it, what I do not want to get into, the way this is set up, is pretty much what we have now, where we have a fixed 3 years, and if something changes, we have to start all over again. Pay for the bond counsel, have this kind of conversation. So these, from my perspective, and for others that we've talked to, and I think it is a very, very good deal. And the mayor's recommendation is to authorize me to move forward with the refinancing, and for you to consider the first reading. And of course, I have Nancy here to answer any of your questions that I may not be able to answer.
All right, Councilmember Selski.
Yes, thank you, Professor, for the update and the presentation on this. First of all, also thanks for answering the litany of questions that I sent you just yesterday. That helped fill in some of the questions that I had, some of the uncertainty that I had. So, and I'm glad you mentioned about a bond that was recently sold with a variable rate. I would never vote to approve a variable rate. So I like the way you structured this. I think it's going to work best for us. My question is, are we likely to sell this bond at 2.17% given today's interest rate environment? I know it's low, and this seems low, but it also seems like, to me, that this would work. Your opinion on whether or not we're likely to
Actually,
move
yes,
this?
because this is what they consider private placement. So I have locked in the 2.17. When selling bond, there's a private placement, then there's open, where you will not know what the rate will be until the day of sale. And you can have one group of investors saying, well, actually, we'll take 1 million for 2%. And you can have another group that say, okay, we'll take another batch for 2%. If you look back to SCORE bond that was sold several years ago, actually it ranged from 3% to 6%, because it was sold in the open market. And people come around and say, well, okay, you want me to buy that? Okay, I'll buy this block for 2%. I'll buy this block for 3%. What we've done with this is negotiate the private placement for the whole amount to be purchased at 2.17%. And we lock that in as long as we're able to close by this November 17. So I think at this rate, yes, I know we will have a buyer because it's a private placement. Key Bank has stepped up to purchase the entire $6 million.
Okay, and November 17th is the drop dead date. We need to get moving on this.
Correct.
To get this done at this rate.
Yes.
The other question I have at the moment, you may or may not have an answer to this, or somebody may, but do we know the market value of this remaining acreage at the target property right now?
If we go by, since the market rate is usually based on what the sale in the area is going for, we just sold a portion of it for 27.
Right.
And I think the market rate will be 27 or higher. That is, again, at that time, we have not completed the Performing Arts Center. So the area didn't look good as it does today. And we haven't, of course, we sold it for the hotel. And hotel hasn't stepped in. I do believe that part of what will go into market calculation is the Performing Arts Center is completed. If hotel can get started shortly, that will further improve the value around the area. And I'm very, very comfortable. I'm very sure of that.
And the grand staircase, too, will be another embellishment, I think, that will be
Investment in the
valuable.
area, yes, yes.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
All right, Council, any other questions? Councilmember Honda?
Thank you. Ade, usually stuff like this would go before a council committee such as FEDRAC. Why did it not go to FEDRAC?
I think because, on my part, because, we've been negotiating with the bank, and I didn't have anything to bring. For example, now, I'm telling you, like Councilmember Salsky asked me, will we be able to sell it for this? If I had brought these to the FEDRAC or to the council before now, I'll be telling you that I think we may be able to get this. I would not be able to come forward with a specific offer, with a definite offer. So if you see the ordinance and some of the conversation, we started this conversation way in August. But again, I didn't have something solid to bring to the council. That is why I didn't take it to the FEDRAC. And regardless of whether I've taken it to the to FEDRAC or not, because it's a major commitment, it will still have to come to the council anyways.
Well, of course, but we often see things before they are on the agenda for a council meeting, so that we have time to ask questions. And so that we bought the property 3 years ago, and we initially did try to have it sold and developed, and then that didn't work out. So what is the intent to keep the property for the next 5 years as it is? Or are we going to attempt to sell it?
The intention, I mean, as far as I know, no, the intention is not to keep the entire land. Yes, the intention is to sell it. What the 5-year does is it gives us the room. When you're trying to sell it to, you don't want to feel, or whoever you're selling it to feel like you're under the gun. That I think part of the reason why we probably kept some of the potential buyer at bay is you need to redeem this bond by 26. So because you are panicking, you can easily entertain any offer because you are under pressure. By having this 5 years, whoever step forward, you can say, okay, fine, let's talk. The city is not under the pressure of having to refund or pay the bond, and that is the position that the city needs to be. If you are under any pressure that you need to refund and you are rushing to sell it, you are more likely to make or accept offer that may not necessarily be good. So the desire is not to hold it for 5 years, but the desire is to improve the city's option to make the best deal for the city.
Well, I think it's important to clarify that 1.86 acres of it was sold at a profit for a hotel.
Yes.
And then a major staircase is being planned right in front of that.
Yes.
So the idea, and with the direction that I've given staff, is this will definitely be marketed and sold and to facilitate growth in our downtown, which is consistent with the vision of our comprehensive plan. Anyway, Councilmember Honda, do you have any further questions?
Yes, I do, thank you. To market this property, will we have a marketing plan, and will it be, who would be in charge of that if we did? Do we have a commercial real estate broker that we're working with? Is it city staff that would market it, or how exactly will that work?
Under the direction of the mayor, I'm sure, if we need to bring forth a marketing plan, I think for now, we are talking to a couple of investors But if we need to develop a market plan to make sure this is sold and all of that, yeah, I'm sure we will be glad to do that.
We will keep council informed as that develops. The first thing that, obviously, we're not gonna do anything until we get this refinanced, and then we move forward, and this will be marketed. We'll let council know exactly what we're doing, just as we do in every other matter.
And one more question.
Please.
I have heard recently that we are thinking of removing the building off of that property. Is that true?
We're talking about the old Target building?
Correct.
Right, so, we were looking originally, it's a good question, because, certainly that building is gonna go away at some point. The question is, on whose dime will it be removed? The cost, as Marwan's not here, but I've talked to Marwan about this several times, will probably cost several $100,000s to remove the property. In fact, I talked about this earlier today with Councilmember Duclos, and I've talked with several other council members as well. So the real question is, do we absorb that cost, or do we, my preference would be, and I think the preference on our taxpayers would be, to have somebody else pay for the demolition of that property. The question, though, is the hotel's going to go right next to it, a 6-story, likely Hilton product, our Hilton Line Hotel, right there at the top of the stairs on that 1.86 acres. So they've expressed some interest in paying for the demolition of that property, perhaps to use that area for parking. They're required actually to put the parking on their property, so that those are negotiations in flux. The preference would be to have the individual buyer, when they do buy the property, to knock it down. The decision point that will be coming to the council is if we get too far down the road, it's a pretty unattractive building and it's gutted out. It's gutted out in regard to much of the wiring was pulled out prior to us, and it's really just an empty, unusable shell at this point. So the decision point will be, do we get so far, does the hotel get so far down the path in regard to near completion and the hotel, that building in and of itself becomes an unsightly mess? This council at some point will be called upon to make a policy decision on whether we as a city want to pay the capital to knock it down, or to hold firm and wait for the eventual buyer. I would say, though, that the purchase of this property was the linchpin of being able to move forward in our downtown. It was not until we bought this property, and I want to remind everybody, when we bought this property in November of 2014, our Town Square Park was still in an interim use in the downtown. And it wasn't because we were still thinking that lifestyle retail that was envisioned for that property where the Town Square Park is. It wasn't until we acquired the Target property that we were able to utilize the entire 4 acres for Town Square Park and move forward on those and get public input, and then be able to utilize and focus on that property, which now about a third of that property of 1.86 acres and has now been used for that. So I would say that decision will ultimately be made by this body, and we will keep you informed if that's going on. What we don't want to do is I'm going to expose a little bit of our hand here, but I think for transparency purposes, it's important because of the question that's being posed. The question is, do we let KDS knock it down on their dime so they can use that on a cost-benefit analysis? Does that then provide too much of a value for too little of a return? So that's the decision that we'll need to make at some point. But again, when 3.5, 4 years ago, we had 21 empty blighted acres, and now this property is on the verge of, or is actually literally in process. So that's the question. That we will certainly keep council involved, and a cost-benefit analysis will be conducted to determine whether it's in our best interest to knock it down.
Okay, and one more question. How does this change it, or does it change the budget for 2018? We haven't looked at the budget adjustments for 2018. We'll have a payment, but we've had a payment for the last 3 years. Does it change that payment at all?
Ade, have you calculated with this in mind for 18?
For 2018, no, because what was included in the 17-18 budget was we will sell the property as of the end of November. When we come back to you for the analysis of 2018, that will be included Can we afford to make this payment? Yes, we will be able to afford to make the payment from the rate fund.
Hey, Dad, can you move the microphone closer to yourself? Could you say that again, please?
When 2017 and 18 budget was approved, the plan was we will have finished selling that land by now. And actually, if you were to look into our debt fund, it was totally redeeming the entire 8.2 million in 2017 and getting that cash in. That is the plan. Now that this has changed, when we bring to you the 2018 budget, this will be included. Can we afford to make this payment? Yes, we will be able to make this payment just from our rate revenue.
What will be the payment?
The payment will be about 136 on interest, and if we want to make principal also, it will be about 136,000. So it will be about 273,000 a year.
So is the plan to just pay the interest for the next several years like we've been doing the last 3?
Say that again?
Is the plan just to pay the interest like we've been doing for the last 3 years?
Actually, the plan is to pay both a little bit of the principal and the interest.
All right, thank you.
All right. Great questions. Thank you.
Yes.
Councilmember Zelsky.
Yeah, thank you. So this last discussion actually gets into what I wanted to ask. So when I asked for the amortization schedule, you sent one, and it looks like a 5-year. I understand it's not complete, and it doesn't need to be. So in the amortization schedule you emailed back to us, Professor, it does show only interest for the first 2 years. And I'm wondering if that is what we're going to do to structure this, or if that's negotiable with an eventual buyer, the amortization schedule structure.
It is going to be, like I said, the potential buyer now is KeyBank. As what we have in there, yes, you're right, for the first 2 years, it will be interest only. If we want to make principal, yes, we can also do that.
Okay, I personally, I'm going to tip my hand and say, let's just make it interest only and use the principal. Otherwise, that we would have paid for this for something else.
Yes.
And that buys us time. I mean, it buys us 2 years to find a purchaser of the property. Absolutely. And eventually, we're going to get that principal back anyway, so.
Yes. And the beauty of this is what we've been paying before. What this payment schedule for the next 2 years is similar to what we've paid this year, last year, the year before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's an opportunity cost of using principal right now.
Correct.
Versus using it for a different purpose. So I like the way I see this amortization schedule for the first 5 years. I really like what you put together here.
Okay. Because the goal of this is to protect the city's cash and use somebody else's money at a lower cost. That is what this is doing. It gives us the flexibility. Yes, there's a comment that maybe we could use interfund loan. Well, you tie up city's cash too much in yourself.
All right. Councilmember Kopang?
Yeah, I did a few calculations while we were talking, and we paid about $371,000 in interest, but we actually had a $146,000 profit on the sale of the property. So the net actually is substantially less. So holding onto the property and paying interest only, we actually had basically was a $6,273 a month payment in essence, as opposed to $10,330. So we definitely reduced the city's exposure by selling the property, but we had the use of the property. We had the use. The property was available for us to use. We were able to execute on the PAC, reorient that correctly, do the hotel deal, get the stairway, do the park. It's like all these things put together.
Yes.
It's the cost is, I think, quite small in comparison to the benefit that the city is going to receive. The challenge is we do want to sell this property as quickly as possible, but we want to sell it for a profit.
Oh, yes.
We want to sell it the best. Well, we want to sell it the best price we can.
Yes.
So not having our feet held to the fire by having to execute a deal within an artificial timeline doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think extending the bond, paying the minimum amount, just to hold the property while we continue to pursue the long-term partners that are going to really help bring our downtown together and create long-term synergies for other investments to come into the city. I think that it all comes together. So anyway, I'm definitely in agreement that we need to move forward with this bond, and obviously with the aim to sell as quickly as possible.
Yes, sir.
Council, any other questions? All right, thank you, Uday. You may want to stay close if we have discussion. Would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 728, refinance of target property, an ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, providing for the issuance and sale of a limited tax general obligation bond in the principal amount not to exceed $6,400,000 to be used to repay the city's limited tax general obligation bond anticipation note 2014, fixing or setting parameters with respect to certain terms and covenants of the bond, appointing the city's designated representative to approve the final terms of the sale of the bond, and providing for other related matters.
All right. And Councilmember Duclos, or Chair Duclos.
Yes, I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the November 7th, 2017 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, matter passes unanimously. All right, council reports. Let's start with Councilmember Duclos.
Mine's very short. I really don't have anything to say other than to say the next meeting of the Finance, Economic Development, and Regional Affairs Committee is Tuesday, the 24th at 4:30 in the High-Levels room.
Very good. All right. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you so much. I see a Boy Scout leaving, but I wanted to, I appreciate you choosing this side here, Mr. Mayor, because I wanted to address some of the Boy Scout members that were here. And first of all, thank you for allowing the Cub Scouts 307 to do the flag. I appreciate that. And
thanks for the suggestion.
Absolutely. So last week, I had the chance to meet with this group, and we talked about city government. And I wanted to take the time to thank Nate and Mark, who are the leaders of the Scouts, for being here. And also, I see Daniel. Can you raise your hand? That's Daniel. And Michael was here. Sam is right there. And then Evan, who also had to go home and get ready for the next school day. A little tidbit, Daniel's the grandson of Greg Vickers. We all know Greg Vickers.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very involved grandfather here, or a community member, I should say. And we, of course, hope that your grandfather continues to do well, Daniel. It was really interesting because we talked about what city government looks like. This is what city government looks like. We cover a lot of issues. We talk about just about everything here. So one of the issues that I posed to this group was pandering. And all of our Cub Scout members recognized that to be a observation that they have seen. And so I posed the question of how would you address that? And it was really interesting to hear some of the responses that the Cub Scout members came with. One of them said, well, we should give them money. Another one said, Daniel said, that we ought to build housing for them and provide a place for them to stay. Another one Cub Scout mentioned is that we ought to develop a registry and be able to see if someone's, as a way to hold someone accountable and be able to look at their history. And I thought that was kind of an interesting idea. And so I was really proud for them to kind of be thinking about ideas because Daniel and Sam, this is what we do. We try to come up with ideas and concepts, and we try to work with our city attorney to see which one is legal and which one's illegal because we want to be in good standing and make sure that the city doesn't go to court because that costs the taxpayers money. Again, thank you for staying this late. I know you have school the next day, but I really appreciate it. keep up, get involved with your community, and and certainly feel free to get involved with the Special Olympics that you heard about. They're going to be here next year in Federal Way, and I think there's a huge opportunity for Boy Scout members and Cub Scouts and Girl Scout members to be actively engaged. So thank you again for being here. Also, on my City Council Facebook page, I'm going to make an announcement that there's a teddy bear drive that's happening from St. Vincent de Paul School, benefiting the cause that I will put on my Facebook. And so I encourage folks to take a look at that. In fact, Daniel, who goes to St. Vincent's, knows about the teddy bear drive, and I believe Sam does as well. And so I will make further posting on that on my Facebook at the city, on my City Council Facebook page. Also, I see Tina in the audience. This is my last comment. I see Tina in the audience. She is a VIP at the, I forget what your exact title is, but VIP at Brooksdale House, Foundation House. Thank you so much. And before I go any further, I have to thank the mayor for recognizing and talking about Senior Citizens Commission potentially. And so I know that's an important topic of yours.
And yours.
And perhaps everybody else's here. Ours. And so it was really interesting visiting with some of the senior citizens, individuals there. And it was, again, some of the comments that I hear is we often feel like we've been forgotten and that our voice isn't heard. And of course, we all know that senior citizens are very much engaged here. I get that and I understand that, and but there are still some that just feel like they're voiceless. And so I have to say thank you to my colleagues, Councilmember Lydia Safadasan and Chairman Kopang, for their efforts and their opportunity to work through this issue. I know that it's in our dais, if you will. On our docket is the word I was looking for. Committee. In our committee, Human Services Committee. So we're definitely working through it, and I'm very confident that our committee will work very closely with the mayor's office to develop a good plan and proposal to be introduced potentially in the future. And so with that being said, I think that's the end of my report. And again, thank you to our Cub Scout members for being here, and thank you for my colleagues for indulging me here. I know my report's a little bit longer. That's why my council member to the left.
She's still here.
She's still here. So anyways, thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Kopang.
I want to the last couple weeks have flown by, but a couple of things I wanted to mention was certainly Community Connections breakfast that was this last Saturday morning. Great. They're a great community resource, really working hard to connect the dots in the community by bringing all the different service organizations, charities, everybody that works together to make Federal Way the great place that it is, into one meeting a month. And again, they had a fundraising breakfast, but I was really happy to be a part of that event and basically support what I think is a great effort and something that really does separate Federal Way in just another way as far as just being focused on creating solutions. And I certainly am appreciative of the reminder from Tim Burns about the legislative meeting or town hall this Saturday, and definitely look forward to attending it as well. And that concludes my report.
Yeah, the breakfast was at Jimmy Mac's, but the breakfast was, I didn't realize they really did breakfast, but it was way too good, and it was great at Jimmy Mac's to do it for that group. Yeah, absolutely. Councilmember Honda.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank those folks who applied for positions this evening on the Ethics Board and the Planning Commission. We didn't have space for all those who applied, but everyone was very qualified, and I'd really encourage you to stay in touch and apply for other commissions or wait for openings, because openings do happen pretty often for our commissions, and we'd love to see you on one of our commissions. I'd also like to talk about the Veterans Day program. This is on Saturday, November 11th. It's at Todd Beamer High School from 3 to 6 p.m. It's sponsored by the Kiwanis Club and the Federal Way Historical Society. We have the banner that we pass around to all different places, the fire department, the police department, different service clubs. It'll be here at City Hall at our next council meeting for people to sign, and then we present it to a deserving organization at the event. But that is at Todd Beamer from 3 to 6 on Saturday, November 11th. And then the Homeless Women and Children's Initiative will be hosting a luncheon on November 16th here in these chambers for our faith-based communities. And our goal is to get as many people from our churches here so that they can hear about what's going on with our homeless children in Federal Way. We got new numbers yesterday from the school district. Last spring, they had 509 identified homeless children, and at this point, we have 522, so the number's going up. I thought 509 was a crisis. I think 522 is just awful. What we're looking for is a space between 10 and 20,000 square feet that we could use as a temporary shelter for 1 to 3 years. Mary's Place from Seattle will be the organization that's helping us, and we're having a difficult time finding that space. So we'd like to turn to our churches to see what they could, if they had any space to provide for us. That is from 11:30 to 1 on November 16th, and we will be sending invitations out, but we would encourage anyone who's interested to come, and I'd like to invite the council members and the mayor to attend also if you're available. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Wasilski.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Farrell. So the Federal Way Symphony played at the Performing Arts and Event Center for the first time on Saturday the 7th and Sunday the 8th of October, just a couple weeks ago. And my wife and I really loved the symphony, but we never really went to one here in Federal Way. We always found an excuse until it was first time at the PAC, and we've all listened to Deputy Mayor Burbidge talk about the symphony and all that. And for me, it fell on deaf ears until it was in the PAC. And I will tell you that will not be the last time that we go to the symphony at the PAC or other events for that matter. What we really found was the acoustics are absolutely amazing. You could actually pick out a person strumming a cello or a bass and by seeing it, listen to actually what they did, their action. It was just amazing, and we just really enjoyed it. And I encourage anybody who likes the symphony or the chorale. The chorale sang as well. Go see it at the PAC. You'll be amazed. Two other things. The next Land Use and Transportation Committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, November 6th at 5 o'clock here in Council Chambers. And lastly, the Multi-Service Center has 2 large fundraisers every year. The first one is the crab feed, which is typically in June, and the second one is the MSC Helps Luncheon, which is in October. And I had the honor of being the honorary chair for the first 2 years of that. And then I passed that torch on to Councilmember Asefa Dawson, who wants to talk a little bit more about the MSC Helps Luncheons. So that's all I have. Thanks.
All right. Councilmember Asefa Dawson.
Thank you, Councilmember Selski. Yes, Thursday, this coming Thursday, the 19th at 11:30 at Emerald Downs. And if you are not doing anything, please join us. It's a really great event, especially I like it because they showcase people who have been successful through their program, who have become self-sufficient, who've either increased in their employment, education, and or housing. So it's, I mean, you all know about MSC, so I don't have to say a whole lot, but I would love to see people just join us. Again, it's this Thursday, the 19th, from starting at 11:30 at Emerald Downs. Oh, and it's at no cost to attend, but there's donations that are expected from you. So hope to see people there. And with that, I think I conclude my presentation.
Great. All right. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Burbridge.
Thank you. The Lodging Tax Advisory Committee meeting for November is most likely going to be rescheduled, so stay tuned for that. This weekend on Sunday, there is a free concert. Traditionally, the Harmony Kings and the Jet Cities Chorus have been doing this free concert at St. Luke's Church, and that, again, that's on Sunday the 22nd, and it will be at 2 p.m. And St. Luke's is on South 312th at about 10th Avenue. Then on Saturday, October 28th, there's going to be a performance for young people, for kids, at the Knudsen Family Theater, otherwise known as Center Stage, and this is going to be done by Thistle Theater, and those of you who grew up with Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales will find this familiar. They're going to be doing one of those stories. Then Jet Cities Chorus will be performing at the PAC, the Performing Arts and Event Center, on Saturday, that same day, October 28th at 7 p.m. Then the next day, Sunday, October 29th, there will be a family concert by the Northwest Symphony, and that's at 3 p.m. on Sunday the 29th. And then finally, on Saturday, November 4th, the esteemed Kronos String Quartet will perform at the PAC, and that is at 8 p.m., and that's Saturday, November 4th. Thank you.
All right, and with that, we are adjourned. Great meeting, everyone.